All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Miguel and Brad Kohler, and we're going to be discussing some history and some politics because Brad is running for office. And this kind of, the old school interviews that me and Miguel like to do a lot of times. I do a lot of new stuff, but this is kind of our bread and butter, especially when I was first starting out on YouTube and whatnot. And before I start, I got a sponsor, Live to Fight Design. You can check them out on Instagram at Live to
Yeah.
Fight Design, and they make fight banners and gym banners. If you use my name, Todd Atkins, you can get $20 off of one. And Miguel, I kind of let you start with you because you're the history buff here. Um, kind of let you introduce Brad, and then I'll let Brad kind of talk about what he's doing also.
Brad, he started his career fighting in '97. He came in with a wrestling career background and stuff. Short, stocky, awesome athlete, powerful as hell. And he showed up at the hook and shoot wood paneled room for his first fights. You know what I mean? And when you go back to that day, those days, now we're talking about pure history. Everything else that went on afterwards, we'll get to and stuff like that. But let's talk about that first time because to me, the wrestlers were like, there's some wrestlers that are tailor made for this because they're dogs, right? And then there's some more technique guys, not to throw a name out there, Townsend Saunders.
Yeah.
I don't feel he loved it like you did. You know what I mean? Like a fight. You know what I mean? He tried it. He could be great at it, but it wasn't his passion. But you were one of those guys that would probably be fighting under a bridge. So tell us about how you got to the hook and shoot because it was an 8-man tournament and you went home with the belt that day.
You know what? I was approached by a friend of mine, Mark Walters, out of Bloomington, and he was training at the academy, Greg Nelson's academy, which is world famous now, and which, of course, after the hook and shoot became their first UFC fighter. And there's been a lot of legends uh, there since, as you know. But Greg Nelson was my MMA trainer, and we did a little cross training with Militich. But I was at the beginning of all this, I was coming to their school to help Mark train for the hook and shoot to teach him wrestling because he was going against a wrestler. There was there was a Fulton, there was uh, what's his name, Kaz Daniels. There was a couple other guys in there that were wrestlers, so he wanted to prepare for wrestlers. Well, just by chance, he was out running one day and blew his knee out as we were preparing for him to go to the hook and shoot. I was asked by Greg if I wanted to step in there. And I'm like going, yeah, let's do this, And so I had 2 weeks of submission training before I stepped into this. But, I was always a scrapper. I come from Cleveland, which is, hard-nosed town. And you can definitely always find your way, in a street fight and cops watching, cheering you on because they love a good fight in Cleveland. So it wasn't what really you actually got to finish a fight where cops didn't, finish, stop them for you in Cleveland. So it was, so I had a good background as far as not being afraid to get hit. Um, and I didn't know who I was going against. I didn't know anything about MMA. All I knew was that 2 to 3 weeks of training with the guys and then driving down to Indiana, right, to the hook and shoot. Well, when we walked into this building, which looked like a semi-closed, like what do you call it?
Like a dojo.
Yeah, but it was like a strip mall that was like hardly like didn't look like it was like even open. You walk in and there's this, I want to say 10 by 15 Velcroed mat put together with padded duct tape on this bolt or this pipe coming out of the wall, right? There was one pipe coming out of the wall and one out of the floor that they padded up in duct tape for your protection. That was your hindrances that you had to watch out for. And it was in a corner of a room and was also illegal to do this in Indiana. So if we got busted, we would have been in trouble, right? We would have all been hauled away. So we were behind the black curtain, so to speak. And at that time, it was still bare knuckles, headbutts. I didn't wear a mouthpiece or a cup. It was like, I like, so I get there and, it's, and I tell you what, my wrestling experience had some great wrestling training partners coming from Kevin Randleman to Mark Coleman, uh, you know, uh, Rex Holman, all these guys from Ohio State were just absolutely beasts that beat me up every day. And that's what kind of got me in shape was that wrestling beatdown that I took from all these greats at Ohio State. So, and then I'm going in there just kind of being, their throwing dummy. Um, of course, I was a state champion, but I was like, these guys were just great wrestlers, and to even win a takedown in that room, I tell you what, it was a victory in itself. But going to the hook and shoot, I just had this mentality of training with Mark and Kevin and all these guys that, it's time for me to kind of step up on my own kind of thing, and so. I went in with that attitude. I got to win. I was also a single father at the time, and we were struggling, and I really needed the money. It wasn't a lot of money, but working at McDonald's just wasn't cutting it. So I was a manager at McDonald's, going fighting on weekends, and this was actually my very first tournament. So it was either like come home with a check or don't do MMA again, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so. Well, Travis Fulton at the time was one of the most experienced fighters in the world.
Yep.
He had like 30 fights already in 1997. And that's a lot. And I had 0.
Yep.
So, and I have the whole tape. My brother came in from Cleveland and videotaped the whole fight. Now I have it at 1 hour and 5 minutes. Now they say it's 57 minutes, but I have the recording. And now again, there was no stoppages or periods. They may stand you back up, but you keep going. Okay. So there were no periods. This was till somebody quits. You know that, right?
Yeah. No, this is a historic fight in every way. But this will never happen again. You know what I mean?
Never.
They've fought, whether it's 55 or 105 minutes or, 65 minutes, as Brad's saying, that'll never happen again. And it was intense because you got Brad with all his pedigree and Fulton, who had experience and stuff. So it was actually not like a low-level match, really, for the time period. You know what I mean? It was definitely, and you had beaten Franco Malfitano and Kaz Daniels before that. I'll tell you a Kaz Daniels story that'll warm your heart a little bit. That's not his real name. That was his stripper name. He was a guy that used to do.
He had told me after the fight. I fought Kaz in the finals.
Okay.
So Travis was my first fight.
Okay.
So I had Travis the first round. And again, that took us an hour, whether it's 57 or an hour and 5 minutes, whatever, it was an hour. Okay. So my first fight lasted an hour, no breaks. Then I got in the back. I'm getting some water. I'm stretching. Boom. You got 5 minutes for your next fight. Okay. So, I forget the guy's name, short little stocky wrestler too, that fought. And then, but there was a lot of names on that would probably ring a bell if I can remember them right now. But you're right.
Phil Johns,
huh?
Phil Johns, I think, is the guy you're
Phil
talking
Johns.
about.
Yeah, Phil Johns. Hell of a guy, a really good guy.
Awesome.
A tough guy. And so yeah, it was about 20 minutes later, I had to fight again. And I went again, Frank, the big
Malfitano, yeah, the big guy, 300
big
pounds.
judo, black belt judo from New York cop, police officer from New York. I'm like, oh, great. And this is a big guy. And he had his judo gi on, and man, it was like, big, strong guy. And we locked up and he uppercutted me. And I'm like, oh, this ain't going to work, So then I armed through him and got him to the ground. And that's where I just pounded and grounded and ended up cracking a rib through his gi. And he tapped out. And again, go back. I got about 20 minutes to go. And now I'm facing Kaz Daniels, very tough collegiate wrestler. And
And
let's not
180
mention,
pounds.
and not to mention, Iowa's top stripper. Okay.
Yeah. No, but
No.
here's the thing is 180 pounder, which after a 300 pounder, now you got to deal with speed and you're tired. That's not easy. And he was tough.
And he was slick. He was very, very flexible and slick, and it was sweaty. And we're on the slick mat, and we're slipping and sliding everywhere, And I'm headbutting. I mean, I think I probably headbutted Travis about 100 times, and I'm not exaggerating. I headbutted him about 100 times. I got Frank about 1-2 times. Right shot to the ribs, and seconds after that, he tapped out and had a hard time getting up. Kaz, I just kept headbutting him. And I think we're at about the 15-minute mark where he just said, I saw what you did to Travis. I'm not going through this. I have a career in modeling. And so he tapped out. And I still have my belt and my medal and all that stuff and all the paperwork from Jeff Osborne and the hook and shoot. And the MMA, it's Charlie Smith in Pennsylvania. It's the MMA Museum. They keep wanting to buy it from me because it's really one of the very few 8-man tournaments that represented the beginning of this sport. And and actually not many people who started the 8-man tournament finished it without an alternate stepping in. So in about 3 hours, I fought for almost 2 hours. So I won't sell that belt like a lot of fighters did because they needed money. Okay. And who doesn't need money? I'm not a millionaire, but I mean, that represents so much to me and what I accomplished that day. It's almost as, I mean, it's more memorable than anything I've ever done in sports. And then, that knockout punch in 1999, those great moments in mine, those are topics that, nobody can ever take away from you. And, I could fail at many other things in life, but I'm like, there's a couple times and there's been many days in my life that I'm proud of, but, I just kept thinking to myself, I've got to win this check more than I thought about the belt because I needed the money when I was raising my daughter. So.
And just to add to it, so that people really get a perspective, the reason they fought 55 or 65 minutes, whatever it is because that was actually a no time limit fight. It could have gone on. It's a great sequence. I listened to that thing on headphones at one point. There's a great sequence where you and Travis are on your feet for a good 15 minutes, slugging it out, and then you finally get the takedown, and you secure him, and you're down, and your coach goes to tell you, and he realizes, and he asks Jeff, how much time is left? And you can hear Jeff in his voice go, there's no time limit. So your coach turns around and tells you, Brad, you got plenty of time. It's a magic moment.
Yeah. Well, there was a time, I forget who the referee was, but they did stand us up one time to stop Travis's blood. And they only gave him 1 minute to try to stop his bleeding. And, but again, there was different rules back then. There was no boxing commission. There really were, there was gentlemen's rules. There's no hair pulling, kicking the groin, eye gouging, fish hooking. That basically was about it. Otherwise, you could hit behind the head, you can hit the ears, you can hit anything, headbutts. And again, I think of some of the fighters who fight today, they get in these positions, and like these jiu-jitsu guys, they can block a punch, this, that, and the other when they feel that coming. But when you take a guy's arms and you're in there tying up both arms, and that head is your third elbow that comes down, I wonder how long they would stay in the game. And, without that other element of headbutts in there today, I wonder how many people would really, stay in the game.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for the record, the referee that day was Scott Sullivan.
Yeah. Muay Thai guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How much?
Yeah, it takes me a little time to remember some of these things because I'm so focused on my new careers and things and my new things going on. But yeah, I like reminiscing the old times. I really cherish some of the guys and gentlemen that I met over the years and got the time to spend time with, from, like Boss Root and then Maurice Smith. And of course, Mark Coleman and I have been friends for a long time. And then, unfortunately, the late Kevin Randleman, and but I think of Dan Severn's such a great guy. We've become good friends, and
Monty,
Dan the Beast Severn, what a legend there, um, you know,
Monty,
what's that?
Monty Cox, Monty Cox.
Monty Cox, yeah, yeah.
He's a guy. He helped you put together shows at one point in your career and stuff like that. Todd, go.
We did, and that was, again, there were some times in those days where promoting was a whole nother thing, where there was no regulations, and not being business savvy people as fighters, you got a different mindset. You got an athlete mindset, you got a businessman mindset, and you make mistakes, and when you try to combine the two, you really can't give 100% focus. So there was many mistakes in my career, not just as a fighter, promoter, pro wrestler, because I was trying to do so much that I took away from the one sport I probably should have focused on. And I took a lot of losses because I wasn't ready for it. I took short notice fights that I didn't prepare for. So it is what it is. Fighters fight. You get limited time at your age. I started late. I started when I was 33 years old. My first fight against Travis, I was 33. He was 23. So there was a 10-year difference. But and then promoting is another animal right there, because you got to deal with crazy fans and fighters not showing up and fighters thinking they're worth $1 million when they never fought before. It was just, they didn't understand we were paving the road for that. I remember fighting on Monty shows for $200, driving all the way down to Iowa for $200, and just a few years later, fighters, oh no, you're paying me $5,000 to fight. I'm like, well, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Well, I sold you 20 tickets. Wow. You know where that's going, right? I don't need you. So, being a fighter with that, I don't want to say arrogance, but I was confident of who I was in the sport. For them to think that they had more value to the sport than I did, that they were going to pay for it, I was probably a bit more abrasive with the way I spoke back then, just because it was hard to tolerate people as a fighter trying to be a businessman. And that was, one of the mindsets I had to switch when I wanted to be a businessman was, I'm no longer a fighter. You've got to be polite to people and, and be good, so.
How much did the museum offer you for your belt?
They call me every week and they ask me how much would I throw out a price, and they go, oh, would you come down a little bit? I said, you know, honestly, I go, I can't really give up, that day that will never be done again. That belt right there. I don't have my office set up in my new house just yet, but it's usually behind me with the American flag and my pictures, and that belt represents a place in this sport that will never happen again. And I was a big part of that, and I don't want to give it up.
No, I don't blame it. And to be honest, and I was with Hook and Shoot, and you mentioned the payday. Let's not give people illusions. That was probably $500.
It was $1,000 to win.
Okay.
And in 1997, $1,000 is like $3,000 today, as the fighters get paid terribly. The promoters get screwed. The fighters get screwed. The boxing commission is terrible because they're run by their own political groups and their own agendas. Most of the boxing commission don't know nothing about the sport. They're in there because their buddy got them in or whatever. Not a lot of people in the boxing commission, especially here in Minnesota. And you can verify this. The UFC won't even come back here because the boxing commission here in Minnesota are thieves. They are flat out thieves. And the poor promoters here that put on boxing or MMA shows get robbed by them. And it's just a shame because there's a lot of athletes out there that just want to compete, prove themselves in the cage of the ring, see what they got, and possibly get to the big show one day. And the boxing commission makes that almost impossible. So as you can see, the shows have diminished over the years from the early 2000s because the boxing commission takes so much of the gate. And why should a promoter make no money or lose money just so the boxing commission can do nothing with that money? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And a lot of those bylaws with the boxing commission were actually underwritten by Dana and the Fertittas as they're in with the boxing commissions. So it's their rules that are sort of mixed in with what the boxing commission provides. It's a mafia all its own.
It is. No, it is. You're right. Once Zuffa took over the UFC, the politicians changed their whole mindset, their whole way of thinking about the UFC, and the whole thing blew up because, well, there were kickbacks. There were certainly kickbacks, and when SEG owned them, the Meyerowitz guy from New York owned the UFC, they refused to pay fees and royalties and all that stuff to anybody else because this was then for the fighters, So, Japan is no different than what's going on now, but they do take care of the fighters a lot more in Japan than they do here. Unless you're one of the top 2 ranked guys in the UFC, you don't make any money. There are top 10 fighters out there broke.
All right,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's absolutely right. Now, talk about your UFC debut because you had a knockout in the UFC that is still a highlight reel.
Yeah. Well, I did fight in the UFC in December 1997 against Trey Telligman, and I was pretty much dominating the entire fight until Trey caught me in an armbar in the last couple minutes. And Trey, me and him still, him and I and Guy Mesker, we still say hi back and forth every now on social media, follow each other. Such good guys down there. They were the Lions Den back there with Shamrock and them. Those are such good guys. And Trey Telligman was, such a competitor. He came in with a short notice too. Really big, strong guy. And I took him down, did the ground and pound. They took away the headbutts right before that fight. And so I couldn't do any headbutts. And but we had a really good fight. He did take the victory in 1997. I was really disappointed because that was actually my first loss. I was 11-0 going into the UFC. And I won the hook and shoot. I won the IFC, the International Fighting Championships 4-man tournament up in Dakota. And then I won the Extreme Challenge for Monty Cox. So I had 3 titles going into my first UFC. And then I came out and, I had to get bigger, stronger, faster. So I started training with some pro wrestlers. Animal with the Road Warriors, he passed about a year and a half ago. He became a really good training partner of mine. Mike Enos, Wayne Bloom, a lot of those guys. And then trained a little bit more than Pat Miletich. And he helped me a lot with my boxing. And Pat and I really took the time, and as he was my quarterman then, because I was short. I mean, I know, I'm probably the shortest heavyweight that got to the UFC, but because I was short, I had to keep my distance, get in and out quick. So we developed that jumping, dancing thing I did, and kind of fake you out with a double leg, and then come back with my overhand cross right. And I caught quite a few people with that. And then once they figured out my game, I was pretty much, had to figure, I switched to southpaw after that. But I caught in 1999, I caught Steve Judson with a right cross. It's still a highlight reel, and very good night. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the build up to that? Because you had a loss in the UFC, And Judson had a lot of heat with him. He was, I think, from the West Coast, and he was one of the guys that's like a real poster boy heavyweight. You know, like a big but muscular guy too.
Yeah, yeah. He was 4-0 in MMA, and he was a black belt jiu-jitsu under the Gracie, and he trained with Dodds. Remember Dave Dodds or Steve Dodds? Steve Dodds, right?
No, David Dodd. David Dodd.
Yeah, David Dodd. He was a UFC
Yeah.
veteran too. So
Yeah.
he trained with him. So, he was no joke. He was a big, strong, good, he was 4-0 at the time, trained with another UFC veteran. And so I had a great night. The UFC would not give me a contract. They would not even give me another fight. And, Monty was my manager at the time, is where me and Monty kind of parted ways because his new heavyweight was Tim Silva. So they were trying to get Tim in there and this, that, and the other, which, and Tim's a hell of a guy too. It was just that I was not their poster boy for the heavyweight division. I got it. So I had a big 9-fight contract in Japan for a lot of money. And they took care of me. I was there almost every month and did quite a bit over there. And then fought for Rings. I was actually their first American signed to Rings USA. So, and then there was Randy Couture, and then there was Dan Henderson. So it was. I've been on some really good cards if you think about it. So in 15.5 in Japan, UFC 15.5, that was the night Maurice Smith lost to Randy Couture, and Frank Shamrock tapped out Kevin Jackson in 15 seconds. Okay. And then on my 1999 UFC, it was Tito versus Frank Shamrock in that big title fight. So I've been on some fantastic cards, and then Japan, Tank Abbott was on that one too. Conan Silveira. I mean, there was Vitor Belford. I mean, so there was so many people on that show that I got to be a part of. And then the card on in 99, I mean, Frank Shamrock, I mean, it really doesn't get better than Frank Shamrock in this sport. He's one of the guys who really was probably one of the greatest and most underrated fighters you don't hear about today. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me ask you, because it's very nice of you to give props to other guys and other fights and stuff, but you fought some legends too. Like when you were in Rings, you fought a Russian guy named Mikhail Ilyukhin, who nobody remembers now, but that guy was a leg-lock master. Talk about me fighting that guy and what that type of experience was like.
It was, I thought I had that fight won, and he had caught me, with I believe it was a leg lock that day, and he rolled me up by the ring. See, the ring threw me off. You can use the cage, this, that, but the ring you kind of get wrapped up on, and so he caught me up on that, and it was he was a great fighter. Yeah, I got opportunity to fight him, and which was a great night. And then the younger Overing I fought. Oh no, the older Overing. I fought the older Overing. Yeah, Alistair Overing. Yeah. And that was a good fight. Valentine. Yeah. And again, Japan had me pro wrestling and fighting, so it was just my training was just so messed up, and so I go over there 1 month to pro wrestle, and I'm being that. Then all of a sudden, we want you on the next card. I'm like going, well, I need to train, so I got to get back and train. So then I got 3 weeks to train, which just wasn't enough time to make that transition, So, and then you're going against world-class athletes. And I'll tell you, it was an honor just to be in the ring in Japan with them, but I wasn't ready. But, I was contracted to fight, and you have to honor the contract or they cut you. So.
Yeah, no, you're always honorable, and hey, you were getting paid over there too,
We got paid.
A young Babalu.
I fought Babalu in WEF on a 3-day notice. I was actually in New Mexico with Animal at the Road Warriors doing a pro wrestling tour. Me and Dan the Beast Severn were the co-main events in this pro wrestling tour. And they kept calling me. I'm like going, well, I'm not ready. So they kept throwing more money at me, more. And if you remember Jamie Levine, who's probably one of the biggest shyster promoters in the history of the sport, okay? And he ended up going to prison by swindling people. But, and Monty's like, oh, no, I'll make sure you get your money up front. We go, okay. All right, Monty, done. Fly me in, right? And of course, they oversold me and undersold Ronaldo Babalu because he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy, man. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy. I locked up with him one time. I'm going, and then you find out he was on the Brazilian national team. They told me he had no wrestling experience at all. So I'm like, oh, you guys lied to me. But here's the thing: is in my corner. Guess who was in my corner?
Monty or Pat?
John Peretti.
Oh, okay.
Legendary matchmaker for the UFC. So he
I was at that
me.
show.
Yeah, John Peretti cornered me, right? And so I think TJ Thompson was the announcer. So I get into wherever it was a Brazilian pay-per-view, but it was here in the USA somewhere. I think it was Louisiana or something, But I get there and I'm at the gym and I was really strong. So at that time I was benching 605 and TJ and somebody else, I think it was Jeff Osborne. I can't remember who it was, but the announcer goes, well, Jesus, Kohler, your biceps are huge. What do you curl? I said, I can throw 315 up for a couple cheat reps, straight bar. He goes, curling. I said, yeah. So he goes, and if you listen to this show, he goes, he curled 315 for a double today in the show. He curled on a straight bar, 315 pounds, curled it. And he's like, and he benched 605. And I'm like, and so, yeah, I was pro wrestling shape, not fight shape. So, but hey, my hat's off to Babalu. He was young, he was hungry, he came after me and, ended up kicking me while I was down, which should have been illegal, but they gave it to him because it was Brazilian pay-per-view and it wasn't like, like I was going to complain about anyway.
The show was in Georgia.
That's right, Georgia. Thank you. Yeah, Georgia.
Yeah. And it was Levine, and who has passed away since and stuff. But that was a legendary show. Pat Miletich fought Pele that day.
And guess who fought Anderson Silva?
Yeah,
Jeremy Horn.
No, he fought Nogueira.
Who?
Jeremy Horn fought Rodrigo Nogueira, the big knock.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. You're right. But again,
hats off to Levine for putting that show together. A massive show.
Yeah. And the thing is he was such a good guy. He just, it was just one of those things like, hey, I've had my days as a promoter too where things didn't go right. And I'm sorry, guys, but, it just didn't go right, but it is what it is. But this was a pay-per-view event. And so, yeah, all in all, I got to be on 9 pay-per-views between wrestling and fighting and have three title belts. And currently, I believe, I can't remember though if that longest fight in the U.S. history was still my fight, or does someone else have one?
No, I think you got it. I think you still got it. Nobody's going to beat that now. So that's yours forever.
So I mean, I think the sport really gave a lot of people opportunity because I always dreamed about being an NFL football player. And I went back to wrestling because I just didn't make it in the football, and went back to wrestling. And then that sport kind of grew. So for guys like me, that a little shorter, more wrestling background, tough nose, like to scrap it out, this sport really gave the opportunity for a lot of people. And maybe it wasn't about the money, but really about the accomplishments and pride that you get out of it, not to mention the camaraderie is amazing.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Todd,
So,
you want to take it away? Let's do some politics talk. This guy's
politics,
got
here we go.
Yes, I want to give you a chance first, Brad, to kind of tell people, what you're doing as far as, in the world of politics, as far as what you're running for people that aren't aware.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I ran last year for state senate here in Minnesota, and it was my first time. Lot to learn. I actually started a little bit late, um, and the reason why is I own two gyms. I opened up two gyms in 2020, and which you of course know, and it's probably a bad time to open a gym or a restaurant for anybody that did that. And so I lost my life savings, about $250,000 by opening these gyms because we were forced to shut down. And I don't really have any bitterness towards it all, but I just think there's a lot of bad decisions made because of all that. And because I was shut down, some businesses got PPP, some people got grants, some people got this. I still get calls saying, "Hey, you can still collect on this." I go, "No, I can't. I don't qualify." "Well, let's take it." I go, "Yep, you're right. You don't qualify." Well, certain stipulations had businesses and categories that we did not qualify for, but yet they told us we could not go to work and make money. And so when you do that for 6 months out of the year, where you're not allowed to make money, but they're paying these people to stay home and collect unemployment, I just don't think that decision, I wonder what I would have done to these people. Would I've come out of retirement, hit them in the head if I was in that room and they made a decision? Because I really thought that was, a lot of people went out of business. A lot of people got hurt, a lot of decisions that were made. And then once the George Floyd thing happened here and our governor told our law enforcement to stand down and allowed people to come from Chicago and Milwaukee and wherever here to destroy our city. It took them 3 days to finally call in the National Guard. I just thought there's a lot of bad decisions being made from the top on down. I flat out think, I don't know how Trump lost the last election. I just don't know. And right now they're trying to keep him off the ballots, which is like going, well, if they're keeping him off the ballot, then why don't they do something with our governor who allowed our city to be destroyed? Things like that, just kind of like, where do they come up with these things? So my business gets shut down. I end up having to go back to work in the restaurant industry, which I did. I'm doing very well now, making a lot more money than I would as a politician. But I still have a passion for helping people. So, whether it's restaurant or the gym business, you're in the service industry. You know that. So you like to help people. You like to see people reach their goals. You like to motivate them. And so I'm just trying to take that mindset to the office with me and see what I can do as a person in that political power that can actually help people rather than hurt people. So,
What was it like the first time when you ran, as far as like, how did you do, you think?
well, I did okay. Like I said, it was a learning experience. I listened too much to people who scared me into don't go to these debates. They'll corner you. They'll this, that, and I ran from a fight, which is not me. And so I think I would do well in these debates because I'm just going to be me. I'm not one of these political jargon speaking people. I'm plainly tongued. I'm, not overly educated, but I have common sense. And a lot of these people who talk this political jargon, you can't understand. It's just too much. So when it comes to certain policies, laws, and regulations, I have a very firm belief on a lot of the things that most people in our community agree with, or they think that way, or just afraid to say something. So that's why I'm stepping up, because I've been a target before. I've been on that main stage before. I've been, people who, oh, you suck, you this, you're that, you're terrible. And then you come back the next week, now you're the king of the world. Okay. So I've been there where you can make that, comeback. And, but I'm afraid some of these politicians who have not been humbled need to be humbled. And being humbled means you've lost something. And now it's like, you got to hold on to what you have tightly. And if you don't, you're a fool to think you can't lose it. So with what we have going on right now in our world, whether it's taxes, whether no matter what the topic is, it's not going good on anything. Can anyone say they like how things are going right now?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
No, no,
I'd say there's
no,
yeah.
no. And I don't want to blame anybody, any party, any one president, this, that, and the other. But if you don't try to get in that room and say your piece, then just shut up. I don't want to hear it. Don't moan and murmur about, oh, this guy and this guy. Don't do that unless you're willing to step up and do that. And that's just what I'm doing.
So
That's awesome.
as you're running, do you feel like it's going better as far as your momentum and whatnot?
This time it is. I think that the new shifts in Minnesota, we had a change of district alignment. So the districts moved. And so mine got switched to a more Democratic area where now I moved to the area that's more Republican. And in this district, I moved actually to is the backyard of the Speaker of the House. And metaphorically speaking here, I'd like to cut off one of the heads of the serpent. And this state is upside down. And we had a surplus of $18 billion last year that they used. Instead of giving our tax money back to us, they used it for government spending. We had a fake feed your children. You probably heard about this. It's on national, worldwide news. Fake feed your children organization here that got $250 million and nobody went to prison for it and didn't have to pay it back. We had a city destroyed because the people in power who are there to protect and serve did not do their job. And I can keep going. This is where, again, somebody's got to step up and say, enough of this. How about we think about the people and not the party? How about we help the people, not the party? So I'm more independent running under the Republican banner, but, and I'm willing to, and I have friends that are Democrats too, don't get me wrong, but it's if it's good for the people, then it's good for us as public servants. That's what it's got to be. We can't be politicians no more because that's not working.
But how do you
Yeah, no, just from a high level, I love a guy like you stepping up because it is a grassroots thing. Like, I'm just going to speak ignorantly, but at a high level, I look at things like, we had George Bush Sr. and then George Bush Jr. It's like, wasn't our politics system set up to avoid dynasties like that, like handing it off to your kid kind of thing? And then, you've got, probably the Democrat that would really put it to Trump and make it difficult for him is Michelle Obama. And that's scary to me. We had Hillary Clinton run because she was married to a president. I don't like that elite where they're handing it off. I could see a world where in a few years, I forget what the Clinton's daughter's name was, but in a few years we may get her. Chelsea. You know what I mean? All I know is that Hillary was on those 30,000 emails that were lost. She was copying Chelsea. Who the hell is Chelsea to be receiving government emails? You know what I mean? So in other words, just when you win or lose, you are representing a great thing, which is the grassroots and the people coming up, because I just disagree with the system in general. I feel like all the sides are the same, really.
And you're right, Miguel. There's just no accountability. And, again, there's nobody who's ever been humble to say, I don't want to get in trouble because there is accountability. And that's the problem. You have these people who are not afraid to get in trouble because they can fight out of it. And that's just got to stop. So, yeah. And Todd, what was your question?
Well, I was going to ask, I know Trump was successful in this, but how do you get around the people who are in politics when you're trying to be who you are and just try to?
Well, I'm not as, flamboyant or certainly not as wealthy as Trump, but, I'm not as flamboyant like that either. But, I'm hoping that, people again, by being more active out there, being more in the public view, talking to people, being more, accessible, and getting people to know who I am and what I'm about. Let's say, hey, you know what? Let's not be party driven. Let's be person driven. Maybe, this guy will do a good job in office as opposed to somebody who's proven they have failed us many times. You know, yes, I have a success record in, and the only reason why I have a success record is because I have a failing record as well. I have failed in business. That's what made me succeed. I have failed as an athlete. That's what made me succeed. I have failed as a politician running for politics. That's what's going to make me succeed. I see what needs to be done and I figure it out and I win. And that's what's going to happen. And again, reaching more people, getting those early votes out there, and just overcoming some of the thoughts that they have about, Republicans or Democrats or whatever, and let's think of it as let's vote for the person.
Now, I know we were talking about some stuff offline. I don't know if you wanted to discuss some of these issues that are going on right now or not, as far as maybe some of the wars that are happening. I know you had some things that you were talking about regarding that.
It's and like we bunch. These some of these wars have been going on for years, and what's going to fix them? We don't know. We could. This is right up there with the abortion. I mean, we can beat it with a stick all day long. It's still going to be there. This abortion issue, this Pakistan, Israel is still going to be there. How do we fix it? What do we do? Give one country all the weapons they can do to defend themselves, to destroy the other ones? Probably not a good idea. Throwing $105 billion at Israel to help them and what's going on, that really doesn't show Pakistan America's a friend either. What's that?
Palestine.
I'm sorry, Palestine. I'm bad. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, Palestine.
Yeah,
and
Pakistan's another problem that we can get into, but yeah, just go ahead with the Palestine thing.
Right. Well, Pakistan. We heard about Pakistan for so long that now it's
for sure.
Every 2 years we go through some kind of drama like this with our European allies fighting their enemies. And right now we got the UK fighting Russia. We got Israel now in trouble. It's like, I don't think if we had a strong leader, our allies would be in this trouble. I think they would know that the strong backbone of the United States would be there to make sure that we would come to the table first. They would be afraid. I mean, the enemies of our allies would be afraid to do what they're doing today without coming to the table first against the United States with a strong leader, because a strong leader would not put up with this crap. And also, even stronger leader wouldn't just throw money and not do much about it. Wow, we've got a whole bunch of ships off the coast or wherever. We're not really doing nothing. We're throwing money at the UK. We're throwing money at Israel, but we're not fixing the problem. It's not fixing the problem. And the thing is, as the biggest army in the world, and we double all the rest put together, if you look at it, our army is twice as big as the entire world. And we can't go in there and all of a sudden just take over like we did in Iraq, but we can sit there and support our allies and make sure that, yeah, their enemies aren't going to do what they do, and also try to, figure out, why do you guys want to fight over this piece of land? And okay, let's try to come up with some kind of an understanding then. But when you're, I guess, religion driven, sometimes it's really hard to understand what they're going through. I don't walk in their shoes, and neither of us can do that. They certainly have their passion about this piece of land. And what can we do about it? I don't think there's anything we can do about it. So we either just let them do what they got to do, or we really step in and not let anything happen. But we don't just, here you go, do the best you can. It doesn't fix it.
Now, let me ask you this, because you talk about throwing money at the problem, and obviously, people think that's a solution. But one of the things that worries me is, also our word, because a lot of what we do in Europe with protecting the Europeans and being that backbone you talk about is fulfilling the promises of our forefathers during World War II and stuff like that. And backing off on that kind of makes us look bad. Like, hey, we're not going to help Germany anymore because, yeah, make Germany pay for what they need to pay for and hold them accountable. But backing off on promises, and that's part of the problem with Israel, is that these are our forefathers that made a promise. Do we have accountability to hold on to that? How do you feel about that?
I think things change every day from country to country and how we are about allies. But all in all, I think that our leaders, if they want to lead, they should honor the word of our forefathers. And if we can't, then try to make a new word with them. And we can't do that, then it is what it is. But we should always come to the table and say, okay, what's the problem? I mean, come on, you can't see that Putin and Trump are sitting there going, hey man, so what's going on? That you don't think they're really talking plain tongue? Like, tell me what's really bugging you. You know what? Even Jong Kim got along with Trump. Okay, he calls Biden the worst president ever. Okay, here's a guy who we thought was going to start World War III, respects Trump, hates Biden. I mean, again, Putin and Trump, they came to the table no problem. There wasn't any wars when Trump was in office, and I don't think it has anything to do with him as a president. I think it's because of the man that he is. He's very direct. He tells you exactly how it's going to be. This is what it is. This, that, and the other. And he negotiates. He does listen too. And it's probably what made him a good business person is that he listened as much as he talks. We just don't see that part of him.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because Trump scares people, but I think it's because, and I talked about the dynasties and stuff, he is an outsider to our system. And the thing about it, though, is that I think he learned to play the game real fast and real quick. And now he's sort of becoming part of that system, don't you think?
Well, I think, he always has had a political tie with people from the top on down for many years. I'm sure he has pictures with every president since he was his first millionaire. I mean, I'm sure he's, no matter if they're Democrat or Republican, I'm sure he has shook hands or had dinner with every president over the past 25 years. I'm pretty sure of it. Okay. And then you learn the pros and cons, the good and the bad from each one of those. And that's how you develop yourself as the person you want to lead, just like you would in business. Well, this guy sucked at this. This guy's great at this. Maybe this worked. Hey, this really helped the economy. Hey, this increased inflation and taxes. Things we want to do, we don't want to do. And that's how I think as a business person, as a mindset person that wants to succeed does. You have to, network, have mentors out there who teach you these things. And then, of course, now you surround yourself with smart people, that also don't just have my head in their game. You got 5 different people you talk to and say, okay, 4 out of 5 people agree on this situation. What's the worst that could happen? We've got to try something. Well, he went in there and tried something. And what happened to our economy? What happened to our borders? What happened to everything? Things were changing. And last I looked, people weren't complaining because that was the highest employment rate we had in history. So I don't know. To me, it's this Bidenomics. Bidenomics is nothing but giving away our money to foreign countries, okay, increasing our taxes, not just state, federal. I'm talking all the way down to selling a car. Went from $400 to $3,000 for a dealership to sell a car. There's just really no motivation for anybody to work or be in business anymore. They want us to be solely on government funding. They want us on welfare. The whole government wants us on welfare. To me, there's no pride in that. That's not the American way of life. People come here for that American dream. and we're being shut down from that.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely kind of interesting.
And guys, I'm just one of those firm believers that what can be broken can be fixed. You've got to get the right person there fighting and holding people accountable, and not just holding them accountable for their actions, but your own as well. Making sure that programs that you start are being done, and not just say, "Hey, let's put together this program. Here's $100,000." Well, that's not going to work because it's not enough money to accomplish this program. Well, what is going to work? And that's what happens today. They don't. I mean, why did we have, or I'm sorry, why did we have an $18 billion forecast here in Minnesota? I'm sorry, a $18 billion surplus because of poor forecasting. So, okay, great. We have people in our capital that can't count. We have terrible accountants. How do you do that? And then you don't give that money back to people when they're hurting for money. Taxes are up. I mean, last I looked, I didn't get a pay raise. So how can you guys keep taking from us? And that's the problem with takers. They don't have limitation on what they can take. And we've got to give them limitations.
So let me ask you this: what do you think strategically, or maybe from the first time you ran to this time, might you do differently? Or
So last time I did not network with the other communities like I have been now. So I've been working tightly with the Vietnamese community, the Muslim community, um, and so I've been more engaged with their needs and what they're looking for. And you'll find that most of these people are parents too. They're businessmen. They work hard. They want a good way of life. No, they don't want their daughter in the bathroom with a grown man. Okay, there are things with the same ideas and goals as we have, but the problem is nobody's standing up for them. And that's where I come in. And so getting with them, finding out what they want, what they don't want, and find out that, hey, we have the same beliefs. I mean, this is what I am against also. This is why I'm running. And before it was more of I did a lot of social media stuff. I didn't get actually to different cultural events to get to meet the heads of the community like I am now and look for those people who will help you uh, learn. Like I need to learn, what their communities need, and why aren't they getting them? Why is on a state level, why is our government not funding their communities, but other cultural communities? Why are they being so shut out like that? And you find out why they're being that way. It's just because the people that are in power are in tight with the other communities and not funding everybody like they should be. And I think that, what's fair for one is fair for everybody, or good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't fund one community and not another one for whatever reason. You just can't. You've got to be able to help everybody. And there's plenty of money because obviously we have a surplus again. So why aren't we helping every community? I don't know.
Now
It's
you have let's say you have some success here and you get into the state senate and you get to become a person that really makes change. Do you see yourself going forward? Like, for example, I know in Minnesota they have a very controversial congresswoman, Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
Would you want to run against her? Would you want to take that on? Because that could be a tough.
Yeah, I'm running for House this year. So I'm running for House of Representatives. So my goal is to get into House, get my foot in the door, and really change the things you want to change. You have to be the tight guy at the top. The guy at the top pulls the trigger on everything. I don't believe in taxes. I don't think we should have state taxes. Okay. I don't think we should have the real estate taxes we have. I think people should be able to make money on their homes when they sell it, not have it taken by the state. I don't believe in employment taxes or business taxes. Others, states do it like Florida, and look what they're doing right now to our senior citizen and retirement taxing. I don't think that. I think that should stop. We have enough money coming in to support ourselves, and it goes to show you, if we have $18 billion extra and they don't give it back to us, and nothing's being improved, not roads, not buildings, not nothing. We're not getting more police officers. The money's not going anywhere. Then we don't need taxes, because they're not proving to us that they're using the money wisely. And we'll debate that on anybody. I'd like to see what they've done. They are right now lowering gases. You know why they're lowering gases? Why they're on the news right now saying, "Oh, we're going to build a third precinct"? It's because it's election time. Yeah, they only kiss butt to you people when it's election time, instead of when you really need it, which is year round, every day, 365.
For sure. But what do you think of Omar? Like, is she popular out there? Would she be a real tough opponent, or is she someone that I know you'd be willing to take on that fight, but
she's a person that really is not very helpful to our state or communities. She's somebody who right now is, too involved with helping her own community and not helping every community. And so she is more of a detriment than someone who is helping us right now. And regardless of her district is Muslim friendly, it's a 50-50. It was a very close race for her last time. And so there's a lot of people of her own culture who don't even like her. And she's a piece of work, but, for me, after I run for House, my main goal would then be to, hopefully run for governor. So.
Okay. So you want to be Minnesota back in the state.
I think that, unless somebody else wants to step up that has more qualifications than me and wants to win, but I mean, you have to really want to change people. You have to really want to change to help people, I should say. And so, unless you really want to do that, not be a politician and really a true public servant, like I said, I make more money doing what I do, and being in the House of Representatives, I make half as much as what I would make right now. But so to me, it would be one of those. I'm going to call it like it is. It's a feather in my cap. You've seen some of the cool accomplishments I've done in my life. I think that me giving back like this is a calling, and I'm very spiritual. God has given me this gift, and if I don't use it and I waste it, I don't want to go to the grave wondering why I wasted this gift that I have to help people. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah, let's look back at a little bit of history too. And if I get this wrong, I apologize. But Minnesota, at one point, wasn't Jesse Ventura the governor there also?
He was.
And talk about a guy who was, eclectic, a crossover, a guy that spoke his mind, a guy that you could agree or disagree with, but was a powerful, forceful figure. How would you compare yourself to Jesse Ventura?
I wouldn't. Jesse, he was a mayor for quite a while, and he had a very flamboyant personality too, and very outspoken. But I wouldn't compare myself to him. I think that Jesse has his superficial side of him as well, of successes, as I do. But I think we're very different in many aspects of the word. I firmly believe that I have a lot more passion for the people than he did. And I think his was more of a personal thing than it is for me. To me, it's a thing that, again, it's a calling for me to help people. And that's what drives me to want to do it. So he was, certainly an interesting guy, did some good things, but, Jesse he didn't get along well with people. And that's one of the things about I think I get along well with people. whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, I really believe I get along with really well with people. And that's how you get things done. Not by, I don't want to talk to that guy. Here comes the idiot, I mean, Jesse was very outspoken, and he probably wouldn't have won a second term.
Okay.
So as we're kind
That's
of
awesome.
so we're kind of winding down the interview. Is there anything that you want to address, maybe, as your campaign, or anything that we didn't touch on?
Hey, I'm certainly taking donations, guys. This is going to be a tough race. I am going against the Speaker of the House. My political website is bradkohler.com. That's simple, bradkohler.com. And any help would be great. And I appreciate that. Anything that you guys have questions for me, you guys can release my email address, and I'm more than happy. You can actually reach me through my website if you have any questions for me. I take the good and bad questions. I don't run from a question. So if you have something you want to say to me, or whatever, please reach out. I do respond to everybody.
When will we know if you get in on the debates?
They'll probably start in about 6 months. Right after May is when the debates start. And so I started my campaign 6 months earlier than I did last year. So all my stuff is up and running. I have all my stuff going out, mailers getting ready, signs being printed, shirts being printed. Everything's, like I said, 6 months ahead of schedule. And the fundraising that I'm doing in February will be a nice big event with a lot of local business people, a couple celebrities, some MMA guys coming in. I think it'd be great. I heard Joe Rogan talk about me on one of his shows one day. I'd love to talk to him someday. So that'd be great.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. You're still fighting. That's really what it is that, you came up fighting, but you're still fighting in a different way, but you're still fighting using your mind, using your effort, instead of, your head for headbutts. But that's just all very, very, very impressive. I'm very glad to have touched base with you again, man.
Oh,
Big
you
hug.
too, man. Wait, man. Hey, it's been what? How long is it? 25 years.
Yeah, but over 20 years for sure. So definitely.
Yeah.
But I respected you back then. I respect you even more now, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you and all you've done for the sport. I mean, I know a lot of guys appreciate what you've done. I love the tap out on your top there. That's awesome. You remember Joel Gold from Full Contact Fighter? Oh my God, what a
Absolutely.
great guy! What a great guy. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I looked at tap out. Yeah.
You know what's funny with Joe Gold? We didn't know each other as kids, but we grew up 20 blocks from each other.
Really?
In
Wow.
Queens, really. Yep. So that's how big New York is. But we met afterwards, and he's another guy that, a pioneer. And Brad, you certainly are an MMA pioneer, man. And hopefully now you will be a political pioneer breaking new ground. I root for you, man.
I'm gonna do my best. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, anything we can do to help,
Thanks, Ty. I appreciate being on the show. Appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you guys listening to my yakking going on here. But I'm loving this, and meeting a lot of great people on both sides. Like I said, I'm trying to be friends with everybody, and but I'm looking forward to this. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's great talking to you. Great meeting you, and great to have Miguel catch up with you.
Yeah, he's a legend in his own, his own right there. He's been around a long time. But yeah, he probably knows more fighters than I do.
You humble me. I bet I do, but you humble me.
Well, thank you.
Awesome thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, everybody who watched the show, appreciate it. And until next time, take care.
Good night.